I never expected to see him again after that first night. We met at a friend's dinner party, one of those low-key gatherings where the wine flows, and people talk like they've known each other for years. His name was Arian. He was confident, but not arrogant, charming without trying too hard. We talked about books, music, and how neither of us believed in relationships anymore. That should have been my first warning. After a few weeks of casually texting and a couple of late-night phone calls, he came over. There were no promises, no declarations. We both knew what it was: a physical arrangement, no emotions, no entanglements, and that suited me perfectly. I wasn't looking for love. Love had already failed me once. Back then, I wore emotional detachment like armor. Arian never asked questions about my past, and I didn't offer answers. He arrived late, left early. We talked sometimes, brief, surface-level things, nothing that dug too deep. I liked it that way. With him, I didn't have to perform. I didn't have to smile when I didn't feel like it. He didn't care if my apartment was messy or if I was quiet some nights. We existed in this odd comfort zone, neither friends nor lovers, just something in between. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to shift. He started staying longer after. Not always, but sometimes. He'd linger on the couch after, scrolling through his phone while I lay in bed pretending not to notice. Once I caught him watching me sleep. He didn't look away. He just smiled and said, "You frown in your sleep. What are you dreaming about?" I didn't answer. I didn't want to admit that I hadn't dreamed in years. One night we ended up watching an old black and white film, lying side by side, fully clothed, neither of us making a move. The silence between us felt different, less like avoidance and more like understanding. At the end of the movie, he kissed my forehead. Forehead. Not lips. I said nothing, but inside something stirred. Something dangerous. I started catching myself anticipating his messages. I began noticing the way his laughter made the room feel lighter, and every time he left, I felt a little emptier than before. Still, I told myself it meant nothing. It was just convenience. Just bodies meeting in the middle of the night to forget the world for a while. That's all it ever was supposed to be. Then, one rainy evening, he asked if he could stay the night. "No funny business," he said with a teasing grin. "Just sleep." I laughed. "Sure, just sleep." I didn't know it then, but that night would be the turning point. That was the last time I told myself I was in control. The rain outside tapped gently against the window pane, a quiet rhythm that filled the silence between us. Arian was already asleep, his breath steady, his body still beside mine. We lay facing opposite directions, a comfortable distance apart. For the first hour, it truly was just sleep. No touches, no whispered words. But somewhere around 2 a.m., I stirred. Maybe it was the cold or the sudden stillness in the room that woke me. I turned on my side and found him facing me, eyes barely open, his hand reaching out to brush a strand of hair from my face. He didn't say anything, just looked at me, soft, unguarded, like he was seeing me differently. Then, without asking, he scooted closer and wrapped his arm around my waist. I stiffened at first, instinctively pulling back, but his grip was gentle, not possessive. He whispered, "You always curl up so tight like you're afraid someone will reach in and break you." I didn't know what to say to that, maybe because it was too accurate. Then came the kiss. It wasn't rushed or hungry like before. This one was slow, drawn out, like he was savoring the moment, like he meant it. His lips touched mine with a kind of hesitation, as if asking a question, and I answered. I kissed him back. Not because I was swept up in lust, but because I wanted to. Because in that moment, everything felt quiet and right. Our hands found each other, slow movements like choreography we'd forgotten we knew. He held my face as if it were fragile glass. His forehead rested against mine. He smiled, an honest, sleepy smile. "I like this," he murmured. You. Just like this. And something inside me cracked. Maybe it was the vulnerability of the night. Maybe it was the way he said you, like it meant something more than just skin. But I let myself fall into it, fully. Without the usual caution, I kept like a shield between me and the world. We didn't say much after. Just laid there, tangled in each other, our breaths syncing with the rhythm of the rain. For the first time since we'd met, there was silence that wasn't empty. It was full of meaning, of potential, of something neither of us wanted to name. He held me close, tracing lazy patterns on my back, and whispered, "I never thought this would feel so easy." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My heart was too full and too afraid to let it show. But that night changed everything. The rules we'd built around ourselves, the walls, the distance, the indifference, they began to crumble. And as I drifted, off with his arms around me, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, this was how love began. Quietly, without permission. But I didn't know then. Some things that begin softly end with the loudest heartbreak. The days that followed felt like a dream stitched together with small moments that shimmered with unexpected warmth. Arian was different now. So was I. We stopped pretending. Mornings became ours. He started making coffee in my kitchen like it was his own, humming some tune under his breath while I watched from the couch, still wrapped in sleep. He'd hand me my mug with that boyish grin and say, "I don't know how you survived mornings without me." I laughed every single time, even when I didn't want to. We shared more than space. We shared stories. I told him about the books I loved as a child, the scar on my knee from falling off my bike, and the night my father left without saying goodbye. Arian listened, really listened, as if each word was a puzzle piece he was eager to fit into place. He started calling me by a nickname only he used. He kissed my forehead in public. We spent entire weekends indoors, lost in each other's presence. He began to feel less like an occasional visitor and more like a permanent part of my world. One night, as we lay on the living room floor, watching the shadows from the city lights flicker on the ceiling, he turned to me and said, "I don't want anyone else." My heart fluttered, reckless and open. I didn't respond with words. I just kissed him like he was the only thing keeping me grounded. I should have asked what he meant. I should have asked why. But I didn't. Instead, I let those 5 words echo inside me, building fantasies around them, turning them into promises he never made. The first crack appeared a week later. I was in the kitchen scrolling through my phone when I heard him on a call in the other room. His tone was softer than usual, casual, even affectionate. I only caught a few words, but one stood out like a siren. "Babe." My stomach tightened. The voice on the other end was female, light and laughing. When I entered the room, he ended the call quickly. "Who was that?" I asked, keeping my voice even. He smiled, unconcerned. "Just a friend. You're overthinking again." Overthinking. That word dug into me like a dull blade. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. So I swallowed my doubt and nodded, pretending that nothing inside me had shifted. But from that night on, the silence between us started to feel heavy again. I noticed the way he checked his phone more often, how he smiled at messages he didn't show me. Still, I clung to the version of him I had come to love, the one who kissed my forehead, made me coffee, and held me like I mattered. Because believing in that version was easier than facing the truth. And deep down, I feared that the story we were writing wasn't a love story. It was a beautiful lie waiting to end. I always thought betrayal would come like a storm, loud, angry, impossible to ignore. But when it finally came, it was quiet. Ordinary, almost. A week after that suspicious phone call, Arian asked for space. We were sitting at my dining table halfway through takeout when he put his fork down and said, "I've been feeling a little overwhelmed. I think I need to take a step back for clarity." Clarity. I nodded like I understood, like I wasn't already unraveling inside. He didn't explain further, and I didn't press. Maybe I was too proud, or maybe I still hoped he'd return, before the emptiness settled in for good. 3 days passed, then 5. A week. His silence screamed louder than any excuse. And then it happened. A mutual acquaintance posted a photo on social media. It was Arian, smiling, carefree, his arm wrapped around a girl I'd never seen before. She leaned into him like she belonged there, and the caption read, "So happy for you two. Finally official." My chest burned, but not from surprise. From confirmation. He didn't fall out of love with me. He was never in love at all. I sat there, phone in hand, replaying every moment we'd shared. The late nights, the forehead kisses, the whispered nothings that had meant everything to me and nothing to him. It was like watching a film where I suddenly realized I wasn't the main character. I was the subplot. Brief, forgettable, dispensable. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He didn't even seem ashamed. "I didn't plan for it to go that way," he said. "But you knew what this was in the beginning." Yes, I had known. I had agreed to something simple, something physical, but we had rewritten those rules together. He had made it more. Or at least, I believed he had. "I didn't lie to you," he insisted. But the truth is, he had. Just not with words, with touches, with presence, with the illusion of permanence. I didn't cry. Not right away. I walked out without saying goodbye, feeling strangely hollow, like something had been carved out of me while I wasn't paying attention. That night, I lay in the dark, replaying every look, every laugh, every time he said, "I like this, you, just like this." I realized betrayal doesn't always arrive in rage or shouts. Sometimes it comes dressed in affection, wrapped in comfort, and only shows its true face when it's already too late. But that night, something else happened too. I forgave myself, not for falling, but for believing. Because believing in someone, even when it ends in pain, isn't weakness. It's proof that your heart still hopes. And in a world full of masks, maybe that's the bravest thing you can do. The story with Arian ended that night, quietly, completely. But mine was only just beginning.